Alrighty, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. That's what I always say, to make sure you're paying attention. There's a little part of your brain that's like, wait, did he say morning? Now you have to listen to me. I caught your attention and now I have it. So if everyone can find their seats, there's some amazing networking going on in the back, but I can see you because I'm standing right here. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Daniel Scott, and I'm the Executive Director of SOCAN, and I appreciate you coming out on a beautifully warm summer day here in June. We're continuing a theme. Last month, we had the Oregon Environmental Council talking about the Forward program, and we're rolling right into solar. We've got some great partners around the room that we'll be talking about a little bit later, but now we're going to hop in. Thank you very much, based on me and the board. And then the presentation tonight will be with Nicole from Southern Oregon. As I mentioned, we have some tables around the room. We'll introduce our tablers toward the end. But first, we start with our land acknowledgement. As an organization based in the Rogue Valley, we gather here on the occupied land of the Lakawa, Shasta, and Takilma people. In the 1850s, tribes were displaced due to the gold rush and colonialization of Southern Oregon. This brought war, starvation, genocide, and the erasure of local tribes. In 1853, the Rogue River Treaty was signed, where 3 tribes were forced to cede their land of the upper Rogue Valley and relocate to temporary reservations, the closest one being located at Table Rock. We recognize that we are on stolen land and will work to protect our community, the climate, and environment for future generations. Oregon is home to 9 federally recognized tribes. However, there are many more that do not hold this status. We hope that with this land acknowledgement, you will research the land you reside on, work with us to honor the original caretakers, and to protect our environment and the community in the work we are doing. If you've never seen this link at the bottom before, it's also on my email subject line. It takes you to an amazing visualization of tribal maps across the country. I encourage you to look at it. So we always do a question to start off our meetings, encourage people to have a conversation with the people around them. Tonight's question is, what are your biggest solar questions? So I encourage you to turn to your neighbor, say hello, and let's talk about solar.
Swap the PowerPoint.
Oh, sorry about that.
I boldly hit command and then I don't know which one it
So large, I've wanted to get solar for 20 years. And I have a lot of questions based on, just because we're retired from the tax.
Yes, they have.
You add, if you started with a 12 kilowatt, you add that panel.
Alrighty, make sure your neighbor gets a chance to talk. Yeah.
I knew it is the way I say it. You know what the panels besides Alex Jackson, yeah. There's probably about, in our neighborhood, there's probably about 12 blocks and solar and we get a lot of people going to solar all the time. It used to be everybody that sells magazines.
Alrighty, the hardest part of my job is interrupting people's conversations. Bring us all back together. All right, perfect. Can everyone join me in introducing Nicole with Southern Oregon, our speaker tonight?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nicole. I'm the program manager at the nonprofit Southern Oregon, and I do like to talk really quiet, so how's my audio right now? Okay, do I need to go up a little, or are we? Okay, perfect. That's great. I feel I'm always like whispering. Well, it's so great to see you all on this beautiful sunny day. Perfect time to talk about solar. And just before I jump right in, I would love to learn just a little bit more about you folks. Does anyone here have solar already? Great. Anybody have solar paired with battery storage? And then I'm also curious what utility you have as well. Anybody Pacific Power? And then Avista? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I was just curious, to see, what folks have. Today we're going to talk about the basics of solar and storage and how it works. I'm not going to hang too long on this topic. A lot of us have seen solar before. We know it collects sunlight and creates electricity for us to be able to use, but I'll just kind of go through the basics. Then we'll talk about home battery storage as well and how you compare that with solar. And then we'll look at current incentives. And there's a lot going on with incentives right now with current policy. So I'm sure a lot of folks are going to have questions about the tax credit and also what state incentives we have. So we will cover that as well. And then we'll also talk about how you can connect to a reputable contractor. There's a lot of solar companies out there, a lot of contractors for just anything for your home. And so there's some really key helpful tips that can help you in navigating finding a reputable contractor to work with. So we're going to share those resources also. All right, just a little bit more about Southern Oregon. We are a nonprofit that has been around since 1979, and we teach people about solar and also do solar advocacy and solar tours. So we're actually prepping for our annual Go Zero tour event, which is going to be this fall. And we highlight homes across the state that have solar. They may also have heat pump water heaters and be on a path to zero energy. Does anyone know what a zero energy home is? Do you want to shout out what it is? Anyone? Any courageous folks?
Where you generate as much energy over 12 months as you use.
Yes, so you would have different things like a heat pump water heater or other energy efficiency measures to make sure you're not consuming so much energy, and then also have solar so you could create energy from the sun. And so we have a tour every year to highlight homes that do that, and it's really fun to see how folks have retrofit homes. Sometimes we're lucky enough and we can have a new home that's solar ready, but a lot of us are in retrofits. So just knowing that that is possible, and there's folks all over our state that are doing that. So if that's something you're interested in, we have a virtual component to that as well. So anyone can attend that once it's posted in October. We work with Energy Trust of Oregon. Has anyone here heard of Energy Trust before? Probably. They were here last month. Yes. So they're a nonprofit that we also partner with, and they have been a nonprofit since 2002. They help provide resources to eligible customers of the investor-owned utilities in our state to access energy efficiency features and also solar energy. And they offer some incentives that we're going to be talking about today that they have available for Pacific Power customers as well as PGE customers. All right, we'll jump into how solar works. This is a basic diagram of what a solar system might look like. Solar is highly modular, so it might not all look the same. Sometimes panels will be ground mounted, sometimes they'll be on a roof. But really the key part of it is that you have those solar panels, sometimes called photovoltaic panels, and they collect the sunlight and turn that into electricity. It's usually direct current, that type of electricity, which our homes use alternating current. So the panels connect to another component called an inverter or microinverter, and that converts that DC electricity to AC electricity, and then that will flow into your electrical panel where that can be used by the outlets and appliances in your home. This example is specifically a grid tied system. Does anyone know what grid tied means? Anyone want to share?
Both solar and utility.
Yes, so you are connected to the utility. So you are producing solar at your home, and you also can pull energy from the grid. Maybe when your solar is not producing enough, maybe in the winter if it's cloudy, and then you get a special meter called a bidirectional meter that will measure that flow of electricity from what you're producing and then sending out to the grid if you produce more than you consume. And it'll also measure the energy that you pull from the utility or pull from the grid. And so this example is illustrating that grid-tied system. There's also off-grid systems, and so if you're looking to get solar, knowing what kind you're getting is going to impact like what type of permits you need, what process you would go through to install that solar. So this is that handy system component that I was talking about that converts the DC to AC, and so that's an inverter. There's a couple different types of inverters. This white one that's pictured here takes all of the electricity from all of your panels and puts it into this one string inverter. There's also microinverters, which might be just connected to 1 to 3 panels. Both do work in Oregon. It just depends what the needs of your system are, and sometimes different installers or contractors will specialize with different inverters or system components. Electrical panel upgrades might be needed if you're in an older home and you're looking to get solar. This could be the same too if you're looking to add a lot of new electric appliances, and maybe if you have that older home, you would upgrade your panel. And so that's going to depend on when your panel was installed, what the needs are, what type of solar system you're going to install in your home. So that's something to keep in mind if you are looking to go solar and you do have an older panel. You should factor that into your planning as well. So we talked about roof mounted and ground mount. You can put them on your roof, you can put them on a ground mount. Usually you will need more land in order to do ground mounting. And then it's just important to note those panels still have to be connected to the rest of your system. So if your panels are far from your house, you still have to run conduits so you can get all that electricity back to your home or wherever you are sending that energy. So that's something also to consider in planning. Some folks might also put their solar on another exterior building. If they have a manufactured home out in the country, but they have a barn that maybe has a better roof that's more suitable for solar, you can assess that roof and see if it meets the code to apply or install the panels onto that building. So there are options. And I think I might have skipped. No, I didn't. Okay. Net metering. Has anyone heard of net metering before? Yeah, so in our state, we have a special agreement where if you are a grid-tied system and you send electricity out to the grid, you get credit for it. And it's not, unfortunately, cash, but it is a credit on your bill. And so the way this agreement works is it starts in the sunnier months. So it usually starts in April when you can get more solar resource from the sun. You build up those credits and you'll see them on your bill. You have like a year-to-date bank and you can pull from those credits in the less sunny winter months. And these credits roll over from month to month, but they don't roll over from year to year. So usually if you haven't used all your credits by March, they will be donated to low-income customers. So that's a really important aspect in system sizing. So you might be like, oh, well, I'm just gonna put a huge system on my roof. But if you're just sending all that extra energy to the grid and you use the credits, but you still have a ton of excess after that year, you're basically just donating it. So you wanna size your system to what your electricity consumption is. And solar contractors can help do that by looking at your past energy bills and also seeing what things you want to connect to your system. If you're going to have an EV charger at your home, that's going to pull some more electricity. So you want to plan that when you're thinking about your electricity consumption. Here's an example PG&E bill. We just wanted to highlight that your bill will look different if you are a grid-tied customer. You'll see your meter reading for that bi-directional meter to see how much energy you are producing and sending out to the grid, and also how much you are pulling from the grid. And in this example, this happens to be a PG&E example. It's showing that this person actually produced more electricity than that they used from the grid. So they actually were a net exporter that month, and they get credits added to their year-to-bank excess generation that they can pull on through the rest of that year. And then something that we always advocate for is understanding your energy bill as well. So even if you don't have solar, bills aren't fun and exciting, but it's really good to take a look at your bill and see how much energy you're using, so you know what months you're going to be hit with higher bills. We know that rates continue to go up, so just being your own advocate and understanding what those charges on your bill mean is really, really helpful as you navigate solar, but also just your energy usage. And then a question that folks get is, well, this person had solar and they were a net exporter, so why was their bill not zero? And that's because if you're a grid-tied system, you actually still pay a fee to be part of that grid. So you have a basic charge to be connected to the grid, and also some fees for transporting electricity to your home, distribution. So your bill won't be zero if you have solar, if you're grid-tied, but it is a lot smaller, to be about 12 to 18 if you're completely offsetting your usage by creating enough electricity with that solar to meet your consumption needs. So that's an important aspect, is that you will still have to pay that basic charge and fee if you are connected to the grid. All right, so how do you know if your home is right for solar? You have to have access to the sun. So here in our state, installing solar on south-facing roofs is usually the best. North-facing roofs don't really work very well for solar, but it does depend on how your site is situated. Usually you'll see solar installed on the south-facing roof and sometimes on the east and west-facing roofs as well. If you have a lot of shade, don't despair. Those trees have other good benefits for your home. And so if you're not getting enough solar resource on your roof, you can see if you have maybe another building on your property that is getting more solar resource that could be a better candidate for solar, or see if you have enough land, if you can do a ground mounted system. And if that still isn't an option, there's also community solar. So you can partake in community solar without having to install solar at your home and participate in a program like that. If you want to learn more, talk to Ray, who is here with Solarize Rogue, and he can tell you more about community solar, but that's also a great option because you can still partake in renewable energy, help the planet, but keep those beautiful trees if you have them. And then we talked a little bit about this already, but the size of your system is really going to be based on how much energy you consume, and also what space you have. And in Oregon, the average size for solar on a residential property is about 8 kilowatts. So solar systems are measured in kilowatts. And when we talk about batteries, those are measured in kilowatt hours. And folks who are adding batteries are usually adding 1 to 2 batteries to their system, and that depends too on their consumption, what they're trying to do with their system, and we'll dive a little bit deeper into batteries soon. If you have a simple roof, it's going to be easier to install solar. You can see what a simple roof looks like. It probably has less pitch and less complexity, because then you can have a more uninterrupted array. For permits and codes, there's certain ways panels need to be placed on your home, and so it's going to be a lot easier to work with those permits and codes if you have a big simple space to install that array on. But that doesn't mean that you can't get solar on a complex roof. It just depends on your specific home. And that's something that a solar contractor can see when they come out. And they also have satellite software where they can see, what solar resource your home gets and can see how your roof is situated. All right, roof condition is very important when considering solar. Does anyone know how long solar panels usually last?
Like 20 to 30 years.
Yeah, exactly. 20 to 30 years. And how long does a typical asphalt roof last?
About 20 to 30.
Yeah, exactly. So if you install solar on a roof that is older, when you need to go replace your roof, which is good to have a sturdy roof that is not old and outdated, you would have to uninstall your solar and reinstall it. So as much as you can match the life of your panels to your roof life, that's really gonna help you in the long run. Most programs have a recommendation of at least 10 plus years of roof life if you're going to go solar. And then solar works on all different types of roof types. There's all different types of mounting systems to accommodate different roof types. And the big thing to remember is just make sure you have enough roof life left so you don't have to pay to uninstall and reinstall. And then also know that there's different codes for your roof and if solar can be installed based on load bearing capacity. So if you have an older roof that maybe has rafters that are super far spaced apart, you might need some additional engineering to meet the code and install the panels. And battery storage. And then someone in here did have battery storage, right? Yes, okay. So there's many different reasons folks decide to get battery storage, but one of them could be energy resilience if you are experiencing outages. Solar by itself cannot keep your power on during an outage. You would need a battery to be able to store that electricity you're getting from your panels and then be able to access it from the battery. When you're considering adding storage, especially if you're looking to add it for energy resilience and keep those lights on during an outage, it's important to consider what type of outage you're looking to withstand. We know critters can get into wires, so that might be a short outage. Fires, sometimes we've seen here for public safety shutoffs, that can be a longer outage. And then we also have earthquake risk here in the Pacific Northwest. So if you are considering a longer outage, you would likely need multiple batteries in order to back up your home. Different installers will specialize in different brands. It's important to know that you can have different size modules, but you usually stick to the same brand battery. So if you're installing one battery of one brand, if you look to add another one, you'll likely, I'll just let them make the announcement.
Restrooms will be closing in 15 minutes. I repeat, though, I will be closing in 30 minutes.
We get to stay and continue our party, so nobody worry. And then if you wanted to add that second battery, it's important to know that you'd want to stick within the same brand, and that has to do with the battery chemistries. And then batteries do require space, so making sure that you have that space if you're looking to add 1 to 2 batteries. If you were looking for a whole home backup, you would need a very large amount of batteries in order to back up an entire home. Most folks opt for a partial backup, and so that's selecting specific circuits that you would back up and connect to an essential loads panel, which would be a second electrical panel that would just have those backed up circuits. Some folks have also started installing smart electrical panels, which can replace your current electrical panel, and it has some load flexibility. And it can be expensive because it is a newer technology. So there's also smart breakers if you're looking for load flexibility. When you do get a battery, you should consider what needs power for how long and what type of outage you're looking to withstand. And I'm just going to jump right into incentives. So the big one that we've all probably been hearing about lately is the ITC, or federal tax credit. And so how it stands currently and how it's been for the last few years is it's 30% of your cost, dollar for dollar, as a tax credit. So you get it when you file your taxes. This is up to be changed in the current reconciliation bill that is now with the Senate. I would love to tell you where it's going to land, but we don't know. So we should have some answers in the next few weeks. But even once the Senate finishes their draft, it will go back to the House for approvals. And we could see this go away. So that's really important to keep in mind. If you are applying or want to use that federal tax credit, I'm not a tax professional. I'm just sharing educational info with you all. So it's great to connect with a tax professional to make sure that you're claiming it correctly. If that tax credit does change in how it operates currently, also connecting with a tax professional, because they're going to be tied into what those changes look like once that gets out of Congress. Energy trust incentives are also available here in our state for Pacific Power customers as well as PGE customers. So they have one for solar as well as for storage. And you do have to work with an Energy Trust Trade Ally contractor in order to claim this credit. So in addition to these incentives, Energy Trust works to find reputable contractors in our state, solar contractors, and pre-vets them, and they become solar trade allies, and they are authorized to offer these credits. These would impact your out-of-pocket cost, and the contractors would work through that paperwork on your behalf, whereas the tax credit would come later when you're filing your taxes, and you have to have tax liability to claim that tax credit. So that's how those are a little different. And then you would be working with yourself or a tax professional to claim the tax credit. Energy Trust also has an income qualified incentive for both solar and storage. So you can get a higher incentive, which would impact your out-of-pocket. So it's always good to see if you qualify. I have flyers on this specific program at the Energy Trust table. So it doesn't hurt to check and see if you can qualify. Any way you can get some help with the out-of-pocket is great, because that means that you're going to see that payoff for your system a lot sooner. So reasons costs vary. No big surprise here. The system size and design are going to impact the cost. If you need to re-roof or make electrical upgrades will impact the cost, as well as when you install storage could impact the cost. Let's say you have a system and you're retrofitting it to add storage, but it never was wired to add that battery. You might need to reconfigure some things, switch out your inverter in order to accommodate that battery. Your access to incentives can also impact the cost, as well as interconnection. Here's just an example budget, so you can see some numbers. Keep in mind, this is just an example, assuming that someone's getting 8 kilowatts of solar, they're a PGE customer, and then you can see if they just got the solar versus if they got solar plus storage. So currently, if they are a PGE or Pacific Power customer, you can access that Energy Trust incentive when you work with a trade ally. And so that would impact your out-of-pocket. And then right now, the 30% investment tax credit still exists, but we're all watching very closely to see what happens to that in the next few weeks. Many folks choose to finance their system, but it's really important, as with any financial decision, to make sure that you're looking at the financing terms, reading the contracts. If you are working with someone and they have like high pressure sales tactics, that's usually a red flag. You want to take your time, make sure you fully understand the terms, if there's any penalty to pay back, earlier, if there's any hidden fees or dealer fees are important to look at. Sometimes installers work specifically with a third-party partner to help finance, and another place we recommend is check with your current bank or credit union. You have a relationship with them already. They might have solar loans. And so just really checking to see what your options are so you can get the best financing that you can access. And then we talked about the trade allies already. And so really Energy Trust works to find contractors who have good reputation. They tend to be more local. They're able to offer those Energy Trust incentives. They meet the requirements for their installs to get those incentives. And so you can connect with a trade ally through Energy Trust website. I have flyers for that as well. There's a QR code here, but there's flyers back there too if you want to just take one of those, and you can just fill out the form if you want to connect with a contractor, because they'll be able to give you actual assessments on your specific home and what solar will look like for you, because it is so customizable and different based on the site. So let's say you find a contractor, you like what you see, then it comes to installation. So this would be what the installation process usually looks like. Your contractor will help you through the permitting and paperwork, an interconnection application if you're doing a grid-tied system. They don't help with the tax credit. Permitting can take 2 to 12 months. 12 months is for Multnomah County. That's where that was sitting at. It's come down, but we're over here in Jackson and Josephine, and it's a lot shorter. And installation is usually 1 to 4 days. If you're getting like a lot of batteries, it's longer to install. If you have a pretty simple system, it's usually pretty quick. And then your contractor will manage the inspection once your system is installed and the interconnection. And then you will get interconnected usually in a couple weeks after you do that inspection. And then you're producing clean energy right there on your property. So if you want to learn more about us, find us here. I have flyers. And yeah, it's time for questions. So I want to hear more from you all and see what questions you have about solar and storage.
Thank you. Alrighty, so I have the whimsical SOCAN talking stick. So if you have a question, raise your hand and I'll wander over to you.
Thanks very much, Nicole. We have, I think, 24 solar panels. 4 of them are driving our water pump. One of the things that we discovered very quickly was, unlike what we thought when we were installing the panels, when the power goes off, you can't just keep using your solar panels. They get turned off too, reasonably, because we don't want to electrocute the linemen when they're repairing the lines. Is there a way to get around that without costing an arm and a leg?
Good question. I know everyone would like me to say yes. There have been systems where folks have like maybe wired like a breaker or two to the panel, but usually how it's done to get around it is to add a battery so that you are charging that battery, the power goes off, you're not pushing anything back into the grid, right, to protect those linemen, and then you pull on that battery. So that's usually the way folks will do it. Like I said, I've heard of systems where they kind of do loopholes, but it's not going to power anything for that long. Whereas the battery, or having a couple batteries, could keep you, powered for a longer outage. Good question. Thank you.
With that said, you could also get a 3-way switch, I think, and put in your own generator, a gas generator or natural gas.
Yeah, so people will pair sometimes generators with their system. And then if that is something you're wanting to do, it's really important to let your solar installer know so they can plan for surge capacity and things like that. But yeah, some folks will go the generator route as well.
I know everyone wants to try out the talking stick. We invested lots of money into our high tech.
Thank you. I'm curious, are tax incentives transferable? I thought I heard at one point that they were. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, so are you thinking for like residential or for?
Residential,
yeah.
We're fixed income, so no tax incentive doesn't mean anything to us.
Yeah, if let's say like, I've heard of situations where like the company is like paying for the system and you kind of lease the system, and so they would get the tax credit, you wouldn't. but I don't think like and again, I'm not a tax professional, but like if my friend didn't pay for my system, I can't just give them my credit. So, and then with what's going on in Congress now, we're going to see some changes to that tax credit. So.
All right, last call for questions. Oh, there's always one.
If you want to be sure of getting the federal tax credit, does the project have to be all the way completed in this year, or could it just be started?
Yeah. So right now, what we've heard is that it needs to be in service, so not fully complete, but I think like switched on, whatever they're defining in service as. So like you would need to be doing that stuff now, get it up and running. And then with what's happening with the reconciliation bill, right now we're hearing like it could change, like they could turn it off in 6 months or at the end of the year, but that could still change, right, because they're drafting it. So usually it's what we've heard is in service. So it can't just be like, oh, I just contacted a contractor. It needs to be like started underway.
I think the rule is you have to have a system in service means that the utility has actually done its inspections and flipped the switch in your meter. So in the year that you want to claim your tax credit. So this year, you have Pacific Power has to turn on your system before December 31st so that you can claim the tax credit next year, even if the reconciliation bill eliminates the taxes for 2026. You can still claim them for 2025 if your system is completely installed and approved and functional, fully operational, as the Star Wars movie said, this year.
Yeah, and with what's happening with the drafting, if you are thinking about solar, like keeping involved with how that ends up looking for the residential federal tax credit. And so sometimes it's called 25D. So you're going to be wanting to watch that investment tax credit 25D very closely if you're thinking about getting solar this year. Yes.
So if I want to do solar, but I'm not sure, is there a way of figuring out what my house uses, how efficient it is? Who do I go to for that?
Yeah, so there's a ton of organizations that do energy audits. I don't really work in that space, but Energy Trust has resources to help you do that. And then also we have Electrify Ashland here too. And so being able to see what your current usage is going to help you kind of figure out what type of system you need. There's also calculators online too that aren't 100% accurate, but it can give you kind of ballpark. I think Energy Trust has one on their website as well. But connecting with a contractor and getting those bids is going to give you the most accurate look at what you're getting. And we always recommend getting at least three bids so you can compare. And there's some solar installer tables over there. I think there's cards at the back.
The example that you had up where you had an 8 kilowatt system and 13 point something kilowatt backup.
Yeah, that was just one battery at that
Okay,
size.
so we had experience this year where our power was out for 4 days during a big storm. We have a generator, 10K generator that runs. So it didn't look economically since we've already made that investment in putting a battery system in. But in that kind of a system, 8 kilowatts, and you have your designated need, refrigerator need, water pump need. What is a 13 kilowatt battery? How long would that keep your house going?
Yeah, I mean, that's the
4 days.
question, right? So it's definitely not going to keep you going for 4 days on one battery. And it also is going to be dependent on, exactly what your consumption is. Like you have to look at how much energy is that heat pump using, how much energy is my refrigerator using to know that you can get it. And then also can your battery get recharged from the sun? Is it during the winter and is it raining? So you're not going to be able to access a lot of solar resource, because if it's sunny in the summer, then you could possibly recharge that battery. But folks who are looking to outlast a longer outage tend to do multiple batteries, which can get expensive. And that's why that partial backup is helpful. Also knowing your loads, like what are your electric loads, and actually having those numbers, because that'll give you that data that you're looking for.
Thanks. Very good presentation. So I have a off-the-wall different sort of question, and
I'll try my best.
and you could, I suppose, classify it under energy equity sort of issue. What we're talking about here is really directed at people who own their own homes, or potentially landlords who have multiple units and so forth. So going down considerably in terms of capacity and so forth, I've been intrigued seeing, I've seen photos in some European countries of these, they're basically solar panels you hang on a balcony or whatever, you just plug into the outlet. And we're obviously not talking about the same sort of capacity, but it is offsetting some energy usage, and it seems to be incredibly simple to not that, I don't know its cost, but do you know anything about that? And is
Good question. Yeah, there's definitely people are looking for like other ways, right, to adopt solar at different, if you don't have a home, or if that initial, amount to pay to get that solar installed is just not accessible. So,
or if you're a renter.
Yeah. And so as a renter, when I was renting, we just had like a thin film solar panel that we could like open up and then plug into a couple lithium batteries and maybe charge a phone or a laptop. But it wasn't really going to keep our refrigerator running or work with the heating or cooling. And so outages that we were experiencing were oftentimes like in the winter when it's cold and heating and cooling are your highest, draw on electricity. So the way that was set up, it's not enough to get some of those like essential loads that we would want, but it was helpful for like, small little things, laptop, phones, things like that. And there's, solar is so modular. There's a lot of ways to do it. If you are grid tied, you have to adhere to certain like permits and codes to be connected to the grid. So like if you were kind of DIYing your own system, usually you'd still have to make sure you're meeting those interconnection and permit codes if you wanted to be like connected. If you're DIYing and you're off grid, you have a lot of flexibility on what you can do. Yeah, so it's not off the wall. It's not off the wall. It's just maybe the technology is not fully there yet to keep that heating and cooling going. Hi.
Thank you. It's a great presentation.
Well, thank you.
I understand that the watts that you produce versus the credits that you receive from the utility company have changed over a period of time. What is the current ratio, and what kind of guarantees are there in place legally that it won't go down and down and down?
Yeah, so are you talking about net metering?
Yes.
Yeah, so for that agreement where if you are grid tied and you're sending electricity out to the grid and that bidirectional meter measures it, and you can pull from the grid and that bidirectional meter measures what you pull. PG and Pacific Power are currently a 1-to-1 rate. And so there's a lot of folks who are working to keep it that way, right? Because that makes solar more affordable because you can bank more credits that you can use in those winter months. And then different utilities have different rates. Did anyone follow what happened in California So they used to have net metering in California, and now they've moved to what is more of a net billing system. And so you get like less credits for that energy. You really have to pair it with a battery now in California to make those credits work. So here in our state for PG and Pacific Power, 1-to-1, and there's organizations like ours and others who are trying to keep it that way because we want to see it stay. But it does depend on the utility and the PUC on if that will get changed. We don't have like a guarantee that it will never change. We usually like to see if, like, let's say they're going to make a change, that there's some type of transition. It's not just change and like some type of grandfather clause, but ideally we want to keep the 1-to-1 as long as we can because that's the most helpful for folks.
All right, perfect. One last question.
Just before the bill. Yeah, the community-owned solar, are there incentives for that, tax incentives if you buy into a community-owned solar system?
I'm gonna refer that to Ray because Ray is our community solar folks here, so the Solarize Rogue.
So the community solar program, all the incentives that we've heard of today apply to community solar. Okay. The only difference, and you still get the tax credits, you get energy trust donations or grants or whatever it is. The only difference is that the solar panels are not installed in your roof. So this works really well for renters. We were talking about renters, or people who live in mobile homes or in trailer parks, so on and so forth, where the weight of the solar system is too much for the roof to actually take care. But to your question, everything applies the same. There's actually, the one thing that does not apply is the 1-to-1 net meter. Community solars are not net meter. Okay.
Thanks. Alrighty. Can we get a round of applause for our presenter?
Escape, hopefully
Perfect.
that's right.
Now we're going to do a little text swap. With my handy dandy support Dale. Perfect. Alrighty, so next month we have Dr. Winthrop coming in to give us a speech on how climate science divides us, social dimensions of climate change mitigation. The last few sessions we've been having more technical, and now we're going to get into more anthropological. And you actually heard from him. He's in the room, but I'm not going to tell you where. He's right there. So if you want to get a little primer of what's going to happen next month, you can grab Dr. Winthrop. A few events SOCAN has up and coming. We're going to be doing a bi-monthly series in Ashland focused on the Climate and Energy Action Plan that the city of Ashland passed in 2017. Last month, we did a presentation on transportation.
Attention, please. The library will be closing in 5 minutes. Please check out your materials at this time and head towards the exit. I repeat, the library will be closing in 5 minutes.
And next month we will be doing buildings. So we're going to be breaking up the SEEP in its 180-page glory and kind of tackling each element. There will be a history of the SEEP. The city of Ashland will send representatives to talk about what's going on with the city, and then we'll be bringing partner organizations to talk about what's happening from their perspective. So if you'd like to join us, July 30th, 6 to 7:30 at the Ashland Public Library. 4th of July. Every year, SOCAN is in the 4th of July parade in Ashland. We would love to have you join us. The theme this year for the Ashland 4th of July parade is Magic of Community. So we want to bring our SOCAN community together. We will also be joined by UNITE and Southern Oregon Food Systems Network. So please bring your friends. As Kathy likes to say, it is all downhill, so it's not a very long and arduous hike. We've also got some need for our booth in the park afterward. And you definitely want to support Kathy and Alan in this because my job is to run the park side of the 4th of July, so I will be running a up and down the park side, making sure all the music and bands and fun stuff is happening. So support Kathy and Alan. And
Sign up for the parade.
they have signups for the parade that they will be handing out if you are inclined to sign up today. Otherwise, you can email me or Kathy if you need. Just let us know. Kathy in the back table also has a teacher survey. We are looking to reinvigorate our climate in the classroom work. So we're working with educators. If you have any educators in your circle, please let us know. We'd love to have them take out a short survey so we can better cater our materials. Follow us on social media, like, share, subscribe, comment, do all of the things and all of the buttons. Coming up later this fall, Senate Joint Resolution 28 did not make it through the legislative session this time, so OSERA is going to be going for a petition drive probably toward the end of fall to get the necessary 200,000 some odd votes.
That gives us plenty of errors.
To get lots of signatures so we can get it on the ballot next year for a right to a healthy environment. If you're interested in learning when the petition comes out, grab Alan and we can get you connected as soon as we have it. The federal and state project is winding down. We have 174 written and or oral testimonies given this session. Thanks to our volunteers. I think we have about 7 or 8 volunteers in me and Alan cranking out testimonial session. And we are ready to take a little break from that because it's a lot to track 80 to 90 bills over the course of 6 months and all of the policies. And talk to Alan, he can wax poetic about our work here. The Ashland Climate Team, as I mentioned, is going to be working on workshops every other month through the rest of the year. Our Medford Climate Action Team is going to be working with the Oregon Environmental Council on efficiency and weatherization and electrification in Medford. Talent is working toward the Harvest Festival to have another electrified booth. They are also doing some home energy audit trainings at the moment. Our chapter over in Brookings is focused on climate education and the offshore wind roadmap. So if you have any friends in Brookings, we also have a chapter out there. All of our events can be found on our website. And Sustaining Climate Activists is going to start being held back in Blue Heron Park in Phoenix. We're going to be taking it outside, assuming it's not 115 degrees. If it gets dangerously hot, we will retreat to the library as we have. To highlight a few partner organization events, our friends out in the Applegate, every Wednesday will be having their evening market all through the summer. It's held in the Applegate proper at the Lindsay Lodge in that little tri-area. I think there's usually about 20 different booths. If you haven't made it out there, it's a really great opportunity to go support our rural neighbors. There's a First Friday art show at KS Wild, 5 to 7. It's going to be on the 4th of July, so after you do the parade, after you go through the band shell, listen to all the cool music, after you go to the plaza, we'll be having an event as well, and then you can go do First Friday if you've still got energy left for that. Our friends, Ashland Climate Collaborative, are here. I put this up and their executive is in the room and they are still doing their bike ride on the 4th. I definitely didn't have to guess that. But every first Friday, they host a bike to encourage people to bike more in Ashland. Rogue Valley Voice, one of our longtime supporters, give him a shout out and his eco-spiritual calendar.
The library is now closed. The library will reopen tomorrow at 10 a.m.
It goes into a break.
The library is now closed.
Perfect. Now, thank you very much for attending. We have booths around the corner and I have introductions for those tables that I'm going to read because I'm not a master of memorizing things. We have Electrify Ashland Now and the Ashland Climate Collaborative. It is an action team of Ashland Climate Collaborative. It is a grassroots initiative dedicated to transforming our community by reducing pollution through building electrification. Together we can create a sustainable future. Solarize Rogue is a nonprofit organization based in Southern Oregon that promotes community solar. Community solar means one or more solar photovoltaic energy systems provide owners and subscribers the opportunity to share the costs and benefits associated with the generation of electricity by the solar energy systems. This allows renters and homeowners who cannot install solar panels to take advantage of solar energy. We have SOCAN's Talent Climate Action Team, who has members who have completed the initial step of becoming electrification coaches with support of Electrify Oregon. They are preparing to help individuals navigate a path to electrification. We have the Energy Trust of Oregon and Solar Oregon. Energy Trust of Oregon is a nonprofit organization that provides services and financial incentives to support energy efficiency and renewable energy adoption in Oregon and Washington. Servicing over 2 million customers, the organization operates in collaboration with local utilities, including PGE, Pacific Power, Northwest Natural, Cascade Natural Gas, and Vista. And we also have Rogue Solar Solutions, a proud local business that is committed to empowering our communities through innovative solar energy solutions. Their expert team is driven by a passion for renewable energy and a dedication to helping achieve long-term energy independence. And on the back table, who wasn't able to join us today, we have Alternative Energy Systems. They provide services through the Energy Trust of Oregon certification program, and True South Solar, one of the most recognizable brands we have in Southern Oregon as a trusted solar and battery storage expert. So I hope you take a second to join our friends at their tables, ask them lots of questions, and otherwise, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate you.